It'll take about 10 seconds to double check it, but I think that we will be very soon, yes.
Okay. All right. I want to welcome everybody to the 8 o'clock segment of the online Boston Poetry Marathon for the year 2022. We are excited to be back in person starting this Saturday afternoon. We'll have Saturday and afternoon and evening and Sunday afternoon for the first time in a few years live. So we want to, first of all, thank the organizers for this weekend, Christina Liu, Xtina Strong, Suzanne Mercury, and Bridget Eileen. Thank our tech host tonight, who is Bridget Eileen. Thanks to the volunteers for the weekend, Daniel Pritchard, Simeon Barry, Christine Tierney, Tom Daly, Donald Vincent, Jennifer Martelli, Heather Hughes, Andy Peterson, Gail Batchelder, Mark Lamoureux, Lisa DeCiro, Eileen Cleary, Martha McCullough, and Chad Parento, who is also special assistant to citizen Carol Weston. Thank you to everyone who has helped us put this year's event together, including our amazing readers. This year's Boston Poetry Marathon is a fundraiser for organizations fighting for reproductive justice. Donations will go to the Wimexen Project of Rhode Island and the Eastern Massachusetts Abortion Funds. Admission to the Boston Poetry Marathon is free, but a $10 or more donation to our fundraiser is recommended and appreciated. Please go to bostonpoetrymarathon.wordpress.com/donate for more information. Go to the pinned post or the bios in our social media for these links as well. We also want to make a special note that Friday night of the Boston Poetry Marathon is dedicated to the memory of our friend Ben McFall. His memorial service is taking place tonight. We send Jim Burley and all of Ben's other loved ones our sincerest condolences. Now I'm going to introduce the readers of the hour right now. They'll give a quick hello so we can double check their audio connection. So readers, when I say your name, please say hello. Okay, so Carla Schwartz.
Hello.
Carrie Bennett.
Hello.
Dennis Nursky.
Hello.
Jessica DeConning.
Hello.
Maria Luisa Arroyo.
Hello.
Shira Dentz.
Hello.
Dorothea Lasky.
Hello.
And Lloyd Schwartz.
Hello.
We are Schwartz, starting with Schwartz and ending with Schwartz, black on black. All right, so we'd like all the readers to now mute yourself, and I will call your name and ask you to unmute when it's time to read, and then I'll ask you to mute yourself again. So first up is Carla Schwartz. Please unmute, Carla.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm going to read 4 poems from my new chapbook, which is called Signs of Marriage. I'll be putting links into the YouTube and the Facebook chats. 2020, were you to have lived? You would have sat down at the kitchen table with my father that January night. Might have been the one to cook dinner for him, maybe a frozen soup. And even though he was not feeling well, he might not have been so indifferent as to wear his pajamas to dinner. Together at the table, you would have been there when his knees folded under as he tried to stand up. Might even have caught him, or you'd have driven him to the doctor that day, or you'd have had more sense than him to stop the both of you from driving by then. You would have had a smartphone, might have even taken it in hand, punched up an Uber. And when my father recovered, you'd sit calmly discussing whom to vote for, Bernie or Kamala. When the pandemic shut everything down, you would have both worn masks among strangers, maybe taken strolls around the block. But when you learned about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, You'd remember the Nazi soldiers with their guns bursting into your home, would have mourned for lives lost, mourned for being too old to stand and protest. The two of you would have kept company. You'd have handled the technology, ordered meals, played the piano, video chatted with your friends. But by then, you were long dead. And when my father's knees buckled him to the floor, as he lay there unable to rise, he might have looked up, heard you calling to him until the ambulance came. The next poem I'm reading is called Stones. You began with just one rock mid-puddle of the front yard. We named it Rock Hudson, but then came two more to bookend the mud, Rock Around the Clock and Elizabeth Taylor. I loved the line of them, the symmetry. I never questioned the origins. You'd just arrive there at our sunken front yard, one large rock in the wheelbarrow at a time until this was no random arrangement. You said you had one rule of rock. The flat side always goes down, so that hump side up, the rock might settle into its new home. Next, you made a line of rocks to guide the Y of our two stone paths. A kind of smile, I said, a rock smile, and you smiled. And the next day, and the next, two more rocks to make the eyes. A few weeks later, a nose appeared, a little bent, a little sad, but a nose. Then the effort changed. You graduated from pry bar and shovel to blocks, straps, and a come-along. Soon, you urged 1,000-pound boulders to find their new sweet spot in our yard, most flat side down, until I told you I liked the flat side. So we pried, blocked, and tipped together until one flat face shone back at us. One morning, you brought me to the backyard and showed me the aisle you had created with the stones you'd moved. I said, well, if we ever get married, this will be our aisle. And you rolled your eyes, but later handed me something, palm-sized with a plainer face, a glittery stone of mica and quartz. Raspberries. As a man and a woman meet in the afternoon, safely distanced across the raspberry patch, they pick and taste, melt berry to tongue, lean in and stretch to reach the laden branch some distance into the heart of the stand. As they pick, they move round and round the berries. A berry dance. You know how it is with raspberries. You must circle more than once to find the ones you've missed the first go round. They speak not the heaviness of years lost between them, begun around some other patch of fruit, not of their diaspora, not their chance reunion. No, hell no. Raspberries, only raspberries, I tell you, these two. They swallow the drupelets, ignore the scratches. Between fingers, they pinch the flavor. And the last poem is Marriage, Two Signs. Driving south on Route 3, just over the Massachusetts line, I saw two signs hand-painted in red. Drain the swamp, probe Obama. The first sign made me think of our front yard in flood this time of year, deep enough for the mallard couple to dive happily, dive and dive, oblivious to my snapping photos and how, before seeing them there, dining together in marital bliss, I had contemplated ways I might try to drain our little swamped lawn, digging gullies, laying down stones or sand, but the mallards seemed to be doing a fine job. Each day, a little less water in the yard. I didn't want to drain the swamp anymore. Rather, I wondered how the ducks would fare when the yard dried up. The second sign reminded me of Becoming, Michelle's autobiography, how she laid out her love for all to read, poked, prodded, probed even, so that not only was Michelle likable, her sometimes self-censored nerdish, cigarette-smoking husband was likable, no, lovable too. And as a reader, you entered their love, understood no one else would probe his almost hairless chest, kiss his lips, or gyrate hips on the dance floor. I didn't want to probe Obama. That's Michelle's domain. And I thought, probe on, Michelle Obama, probe on. And that's my 4 poems. I will tell you that my book is called Signs of Marriage. I will put links in the chat of both Facebook and YouTube after my reading. Thank you. And thank
Carla,
you.
I don't want you to answer this question, but I'm wondering what the Rocks, Rock Hudson and Elizabeth Taylor thought about a bunch of
What they thought.
a pair of mallards floating above them. What they thought about a couple of mallards floating above them. Anyway, we'll have a talk about that afterwards.
Yes, we will.
Okay, up next. Okay, so Carrie Bennett, please unmute, and Carla, please mute. Go ahead, Carrie.
Okay, great. It's so nice to be here reading with everyone. I'm going to read 4 shortish poems, new ones about IVF. I'm also grateful that this reading is a fundraiser for reproductive justice. In vitro specimens. In bland rooms with palms and phones, I wait with other women. We hide our faces. I offer my arm, spread my legs, feet circle cold air like angular moons. I don't bear any burden of choice. To birth a body, I must inject myself with other bodies. Chinese hamster ovary cells, highly purified menopausal urine. I sign each line as though a stone. Above a house, another house built. My body, only particles taking shape. The sea, or at least something moving. The next one's also called In Vitro Specimens. She is a good patient, carries her body like a brighter coat, her throat, the please, dirty little nail buried inside. Records her cycle in a red notebook. Numbers grow cellular across the page. Not enough hormones, not enough to name the infinite miniature faces flowering. Division is a lesser hope. A scrim cast across the coastline. She is a slow dog. Her tongue trips in the wanting, even a single stone holds. Even the petri dish embraces the future. Sing to the cells in search of a home. Each door divides into a smaller door. Then a wide meadow, red grass woven underneath. My ovaries contort, say please to the tree. If my hand is also a leaf, if my mouth carries the dirt carefully, collect echoes or eggs ghostly strung. Watch how quickly those 2 yellow finches disappear above wire and rooftop. The last one, the first procedure. Her legs are made to spread between steel, each day's examining room, paper stuck under sweating skin, to the hormone headaches, to the pills snagging her throat. Turn off the light, see how her skin glows green. Its bioluminescence makes her mouth a blinking light on a deserted beach. The wanting is a weather vane without wind. Not so fast. She's back with a plastic tube in her uterus. The doctor, it's not supposed to take this long. How the body continues to elude. Dye races through her fallopian tubes, cirrus clouds inked inside her, for later tattooed under her tongue. She casts her eyes down to count the squares, the tiles always a little bit dirty. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Carrie, can you answer a question for me? What was the image of the cirrus clouds inside her? What was the verb there?
Dye races through her. It's the dye racing is inked inside of her.
Say the line again with cirrus clouds.
Dye races through her fallopian tubes, cirrus clouds inked inside her.
Oh, that's terrific. I also thought eggs ghostly strong was quite wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, please mute yourself. Jessica DeConning, please unmute yourself. By the way, before we start, I just wanted to say to the friends at home, listening at home, that we're having a bit of a costume party today in the 8 o'clock session. I'm wearing a balsa wood model of a fighter jet on my nose, which is actually a bandage. But I think that the prize has to be split between Bridget Eileen and her flower and her earrings. Could you please flash those earrings for us? And Dorothea Lasky's headdress. Oh my goodness. And eye frames.
No, Dorothea's 100% beats mine, but Jessica DeConnick, who's about to read, bought me these earrings. So.
Oh, okay. All right, Jessica, go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'll read 4 poems also. Touring Lavanque, a fortified house, not a castle. The conversation turned to different words for house in Catalan. Masa differs from casa, much like mansion from cottage. My husband's family never stayed in one house too long. They moved from New York to Mexico, to Belgium, to France. At 62, I came to Barcelona to see Gaudi's buildings, though last night I dreamed of Arizona and Taliesin West. Paul wanted stability. We lived on Watchung Avenue for 20 years. Because I have a house near the beach, people ask about hurricane damage. I don't want to disappoint them and say there really wasn't any. The architect's house always needs repair. Ours was no different. After a while, I learned to ignore the hole where the bathroom floor would be. Still, I was surprised when one of the boys fell through to the floor below while playing. One of the last photographs of us is at Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water. Wright loved the plasticity of concrete, but underestimated its weaknesses. When I sold the Watchung Avenue house, I bought another 4 square, a miniature replica to diminish solitude. While she lived, the dog provided good company. Barcelona expelled its Jews before 1492. I learned on a tour of a synagogue in the old city containing remnants of a Roman-era wall. The strength of materials did nothing. The stone hearth in the kitchen at Lavanque probably dates from the 9th century. Paul would have loved the pattern of its arch. Spina pesca, oscis piscanum, fish bones. Pastoral. This one begins with an epigraph. To forget would be best, but I have never forgotten anything yet. Miklos Radnoti. Pastoral. In the song about sheep, the lake serves as mirror. In the song about death, the mirror shifts to platter, piled high with slabs of meat, served with pitchers of water by the girl who can't come back. When sheep drink water, water makes them well. Water a potion, water a spell. Go to sleep, go to sleep. Recite the alphabet, number every sheep. Don't think about the butcher. Don't think about the mirror. Don't think about the girl, her falling, the clatter. If you tell me how it ended, I will say, does that matter? She got lost tending sheep. She got lost seeking water. When she learned to spell laughter, it came out as slaughter. Bridle path. In downtown Asbury Park, a horse and rider trot alongside cars and buses down Cookman Avenue. Before we were born, this sort of thing often happened, but now the ABC News truck stops to film them, and the policeman stationed on the opposite side of the street radios his office for instructions. I do not wait to see if he arrests the horse or tickets the driver. I am glad for a day without gunshots or children pulled from mother's arms, a day dull enough to horse around. At the edge of Wesley Lake, a band plays folk music in the Fest Hall's beer garden. Even without loudspeakers, the sound spills over the city. And if the name Fest Hall conjures the Third Reich, today I let it go. I stroll along, humming. After sundown, I will join the line at Days, order 2 scoops of coffee chip instead of 1. And I'll end with this, carrying the bones. Moses carries the bones of Joseph out of Egypt to place them with the ancestors. We repeat his story each year, pointing to the platter with the shank bone hewn like the one used to paint blood above the doorways. I carry the bones of everyone I have loved, even a little, and of every ancestor atop my head. Each day the mound grows larger, knocking this way and that. No basket can contain them. Femurs and fibulae arrange themselves peculiarly. Tiny incus and stapes hide inside mandibles or recline on an upturned pelvis. Jawbones suggest strength, but so many empty skulls, useless eye sockets, I cannot tell which bone belonged to whom. Carpals and vertebrae perch at odd angles and scratch the broad blue belly of the sky. I do not bend under the weight. Rather, I listen to the rhythmic click of clavicles and ribs, knitting their ancient, somehow familiar tunes, telegraphing stories that end, then begin again. Each night before going to sleep, I lift the enormous pile from above my head and place it gently on the empty side of the bed. Thank you so much. I am so delighted to be here. Thank you to all the organizers.
Jessica, I wanted to say that the architect's house always needs repair. Is that an aphorism or is that something that you made up?
It's not, it could be an aphorism.
Well, it is now. It is now.
Thank you.
And we'll attribute.
Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to say was the ironic juxtaposition between slaughter and laughter. I don't think I've ever heard anybody make that connection before. That was pretty ingenious. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry I got the order wrong. Dennis Nurksey, please accept my apologies. I hope you didn't have people waiting who then had to leave or something. But anyway, so Dennis, would you please unmute yourself? And Dennis Nurksey, am I getting your name right there?
You are, that's perfect.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Thank you. As others have said, this is a great event, and these events really require a lot of sacrifice on the part of the people who organize them. And there's a special place in heaven for poets who spend their lives promoting the work of other poets. I'm really grateful for that. And we all know too that when you organize an event like this, you're only really visible if things go wrong. And as far as I can see, nothing goes wrong at the Boston Poetry Marathon. So everybody's pretty invisible, and I'm very grateful to those invisible angels. This poem is called A Child in Brooklyn. She stood on the dictionary to reach the mirror and whispered to that white cloud, "Look, I'm me." In another room, her father licked his finger to leaf through a divorce decree with 19 codicils. As you were before, independent lives. Child remains happy. Time is divided in two, but child stays in one body. Independent lives, happiness. Why didn't we think of that before it became law? In another room, her mother in a large white hat was packing a valise thumbing through postcards, throwing out an ocean liner, keeping a waterfall with an arrow and the words, "Wish you were still here." The huge books had been sorted. The ones with sad endings would be kept because the settings were so beautiful. Ischia, Bari, the vineyards of Zion. Never before had the city been so vast, or the war so remote, or the bombing so precise. It seemed it had already happened and been encoded in computers, but no, it was just human life. If you thought up, you rose on tiptoe, and down, you buckled on the shiny linoleum. If you thought sparrow, a small shadow darted by, self-important behind the frosted glass. But if you thought, here I start, it was over. So the child drew the letter I in the heart of the cloud, and there she saw a fiery counselor who shines. Now she and we are gone. And this is a love poem, Picnic by the Inland Sea. We understood we were hurtling into space at 18 miles per second, clouds of atoms charged and polarized, each alone in the abyss, and you wore your summer dress. The light under the poplar was mottled, but the shade of the pines was feathered. We were bundles of self-canceling voices, flight and response, punishment and reward, hostile adoration, panic and certainty from long before the Bronze Age. Yet we made our own promises by suppressed coughs or sneezes and sat a little apart, but sometimes our eyes brushed. We sipped Montepulciano from a paper cup until the bottom darkened. But still, it was not evening. Still, the world was ending. Always, we resented the breeze for choosing and marking us. Still, a song too short to sing moved two famished sparrows like pawns from branch to branch. And I'm going to read a poem that's more from the George Floyd moment in history, which is still so much with us, though our country sometimes reckons with it and sometimes not. Order to disperse for the students. Tonight, my children are facing live ammunition. One holds a book, one brought a Bible, one hides a phone. The fires of the provocateurs burn so brightly. The police put duct tape over their badges. The soldiers are hooded. They wear no insignia. Last night, they had rubber bullets. Tonight, hollow point. In the smoke, you see the outlines of a bank, a cathedral, absent as the faces of presidents on coins. A voice advances, a voice retreats, someone aims. Have you ever died in a dream? What happened then? Tell me what happened. There is only one life. Why do I hold mine like water in cupped hands? And I'm going to conclude with a short poem for my daughter. This is a very true to life poem called Showers. The child tells me, put a brick in the toilet. Don't wear leather. Don't wear brisket, snapper, or eat farmed salmon. Not tells, orders. Doesn't she know the sluice gates were left open and 1 trillion gallons wasted just for the dare of it, until the staring eye shares that thrill, confessing I am just iris and cornea, blind spot where brain meets mind, the place where the image forms itself, image of the coming storm.
Dennis, I'm afraid that's your time. So
Cool.
had you finished the poem?
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to say that stood on the dictionary to reach the mirror, and then absent as the faces of presidents on coins. 2 amazing ways to frame your reading. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Up next, and so please mute yourself, Dennis. And up next is Judson Evans. Please unmute yourself, Judson, and turn your video on. There you go.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks, organizers. This is always a wonderful moment in the summer. I'm so happy I could be here. I'm actually, well, not here. I'm in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, in a microtel hotel room next to a Fox radio broadcasting. But it's interesting because the poem I'm going to read is also references the microtel. My heart can't beat unless you tell it to. My body unfriends me. I explain to my cardiologist, divide the numerator of my alarm by the denominator of my instinct for self-dramatization. All day I transpose, this message has no body, to this body has no message. I almost never use the phrase broken heart, but my sister-in-law harvests and transports hearts in ice-filled lunchboxes. My brother once showed me a single frog heart in a petri dish still beating under the influence of electric current. My Heart Can't Beat Unless You Tell It To is a film written and directed by Jonathan Quertis, which I watched on my laptop after midnight in a microtel in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Some would say heartbroken because I could not go home, no longer had a home to go to. Passing the usual exit sign for Pittston, Route 11 South, the alienated splendor of something seen for the first time. I had a dream where the great reveal was my heart was situated at the wrong side of my chest, recto, not verso. And I said to someone, this explains everything. Why I did not know where to place my hand in the Pledge of Allegiance, why I get lost trying to find my way out of Target. In the film, a devoted brother and sister struggle to keep their gentle, innocent younger brother protected from the outside world, and, since he's also a vampire, supplied with fresh blood. When my yoga instructor says, breathe through your heart, I imagine my ribs as the attic beams in my first home on Atherton Avenue. I hear a high whistling sound, hoarse harmonics, a result of sinus surgery. I only learned that the heart also had a sinus when mine was found defective. My pathologist husband said, we only have so many heartbeats. When my parents learned I was marrying a doctor, they sniggered, not because I was marrying a man, but because I'm a hypochondriac. My body has a message. Like that Irish shoegaze band, My Bloody Valentine, my heart also has dissonant guitar chords. My heart is the Bloody Valentine. Fibrillation of the ocean inside me. So that poem was a haibun. There was that pause after the prose with a haiku. Each of these three poems that I'm going to read is a haibun in a different mode. This is called Aborted. The world was all before us. I knew nothing, but it was too early in the experiment to let our bodies become cages. She was a pre-Raphaelite beauty, bright enough to skip most of high school. Daughter of our department chair, to whom I owed an essay on Pope's Eloise de Abelard, a tip, a phone call to a clinic in Philadelphia. I was the only one who had a car. The other three worked directions and details while I obsessed with the sound system of my new used Pontiac convertible. Technology of late 70s, the hiss and click, annoying caesuras dividing wailing solos. Her boyfriend's possessiveness became harsh as the backward chorus wearing through an old 8-track tape. She talked about poetry, kept a determined calm. I steered through light psychedelia, Working Man's Dead, Jefferson Airplane, It's a Beautiful Day. But it wasn't. Everything gone wrong. A city too big to navigate, a meter too far from the destination, a towed car. We collected all our cash and coins on the paper tablecloth of a greasy spoon, called the clinic from a payphone with our collection of dimes. No dial tone. Clinic's scorched closure. The Stones' exile on Main Street, all the way home. So this last type one is a little different. It's from a set of postcards written to me from a friend who's traveling cross country. This is postcard number 3, Oscar Wilde Bookstore, New York City, Christopher and Gay Street, September 2nd, 1998. My polymorphous fellow travelers. This postcard reminded me of your poster, Navy SEALs blasted by cold water. I hid in your bathroom to study it, escaping the crowd at your party, titillated at the thickly muscled bodies, hard pressed into each other's contours, each trying to find safe center of the scrum. Fleshly murmuration. Could I confuse predators as part of a larger, multi-limbed body? I'm still trying to find that body electric, minus electrocution, minus the fire hose blast of icy water, old queer waltz kissing lightly and being kissed in return. Stark naked starling without its flock, Bellwether Bob. Thank you so much.
Judson, I was so enthralled with that description of the poster of the Navy SEALs being blasted that I almost forgot my duties as a host.
I think you've seen that poster, Tom.
I certainly have, and I've had that same experience of studying it. I wanted to just say that you have a great medical metaphor in transports hearts in ice-filled lunchboxes, and a great piece of musical criticism in annoying caesuras dividing wailing solos. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, up next. So Judson, please mute yourself. And Maria Luisa Arroyo is up next, if she would please unmute herself.
Thank you very much. I will read 4 poems. The first one, Living on Marble Street in the 70s. In a home with no books in Spanish or English, Papi's tongue lashes the air. Mommy's murmurs float and pop like burbujitas. In Espanol, they swallow their S's, leave syllables dangling, pana. The rounded countertop radio out of my reach hurls Spanish bolts of words, too quick for me to catch and color with crayons I hide from little brothers who stuff anything into their mouths. At 5, I see and listen to Sesame Street, sound out slowly the Muppets English, with no S's, no broken words, letters slow enough for me to trace on the TV's fat bubble screen. In preschool with no books in Spanish, I learned my ABCs with no S's, no broken words, no Spanish R's for my first or last names. My American preschool teacher holds my right fist around crayon, shapes my first letters only in English, makes me mimic her voice only in English, the only language that counts for me to survive. Afligir, to afflict. We never learned how to conjugate the verbs of our afflictions. Behind the walls of memories that we learned over 40 years how to seal with concrete and belt buckles, we abandoned the bodies of our youth, lost a few photos of public moments. 3, 4 decades pass, some wounds still bite. We still master the art of making our minds fly outside of our bodies. We buried the silence of our Spanish, built fortresses with our English. Our childhood home, which we have not seen for years, will crumble, one Spanish word at a time. No hay ellas. En esta edición del diccionario inglés-español, se olvidaron incluir las páginas de las ellas. Sin estas páginas no puedo llorar, ni tender las llamas de soledad, ni oír a caer la lluvia helada de enero, ni sentir la primera llovizna de marzo, ni recibir llamadas, ni calmar los llantos de una desconsolada, ni recordar cómo me llamo. No Spanish double L's. In this edition of the English-Spanish dictionary, they forgot to include the pages for the Spanish letter ella. Without these pages, I am not able to cry, nor tend to the flames of solitude, nor hear fall, hail in January, nor feel the first rains of March, nor receive phone calls, nor calm the wails of inconsolable one, nor remember my name. And my last poem, Señorita Hawaii en Puerto Rico en los años 50. At 16, Mommy does not remember how los Americanos chose her. Señorita from Manatí and others from barrios nearby to dress like damas of the 19th century, to become one of many stars on the new flag. Having worked so many years barefoot and standing in fields and kitchens, what does she know of la ley de la mordaza? For the first time, for a few days during rehearsals and competition, she wore shoes, high-heeled, her smiles painted, gritting against el dolor. Her corset of bone constricted even more her breathing. The hoop under her skirt did not let her sit down. Standing straight, she displayed not the title of her family's hometown, but rather of another island she did not know, Hawaii, where Los Americanos reassured with mangled accents, there are young women as bellas as she, with the same mahogany skin, same lips, full and silenced. Quickly she learned, twirl your parasol like this. During those days, she was nobody's cocinera. During those days, she was nobody's obrera. During those days, she dressed like a princesa and felt like a mujer. Sin. Gracias.
Thank you very much. So I think that images from childhood really can be very haunting. And your image of watching Sesame, I think it was Sesame Street, and you said to trace out the fat bubble screen, that's something that will haunt me now whenever I think about Sesame Street. And anybody who's ever worn a hoop skirt will appreciate your comment. The hoop wouldn't let her, what was it exactly? Didn't let her sit down, the hoop. That was wonderful. If you ever worn a hoop skirt, you know exactly what that's like. So thank you for that. And was there really an edition that got published and distributed without the double L?
Yes,
Seriously?
I have it in my home library. I'm like, what? Yes.
That is
So that
astonishing.
inspired that poem.
All right, well, thank you very much, and please mute yourself. Up next is Shira Dents. Please unmute yourself, Shira.
Thank you, Tom, and it's really great to be here again at the Boston Poetry Marathon, and to, everybody's voice is so different. The first poem I'm going to read is Maglow, the golden nugget of witdom. In early times, it was a glow or glam. For the living, it's a dart, shuffling in the air like a slipper, but vertical as a beanstalk, without a top to climb. Maglow. Green ways. I hate being stopped. A billion gears inside, the moon now a light, like all the other lights. We're new now, like kids, seeing farther in the dark. The dying star looks like salmon meat to our eyes. The swell of things. Sparks. A rote machine sputters blanks. Green seasoned swanks trail narrowly behind in columns. It's hard to find a posture these days, encased in clear wildness. Tree leaves try to kiss at their lushest. This is what it was like then, being present. Oh, Bod again. Streets shine like sealskin. I long for a handful of miscellaneous textures and shapes, though they'd be extraneous to the elephant in the room. This is a work poem, yearning to be lyric. We take small steps on pebbles laid out to cross the lake, mirroring a boundaryless vat of grief. Needles plague the dock, pink linen spills, a waterfall of blush, an ode ahead of time. And this is my last poem. Oh, Bod, oh God. Green velvet collars stiff around preening necks in their triangles. Fate, one might say, is geometric as an equivalence. We want to stay awake. It's melon green wash with another color that can't be seen long enough to name. Light ringlets are our new juice at twilight. Mornings, a Rothko sky spills liquid light from and against its bottom edge like the inside of a creme brulee. Until recently, Earth held an equivalence of weight among all species, whales and insects, for instance. We all like a good meringue, peaks holding stiff as collars, or the freeze of a wave. Thank you.
Well, Shira, those images of yours are the most extraordinary combination of camp and tragedy. So, for example, a waterfall of blush, streets shine like sealskin, in the inside of a creme brulee. I mean, whoever would have come up with that? And then a dart shuffling in the air like a slipper. My God. And then I wanted to ask you, sputters, blanks, green seasons. What was the rhyme with blanks? What was it? Unmute yourself.
I am unmuted. Swanks.
Swanks. Now, anybody who complains about rhyme and poetry ought to study that little rhyme there. That was quite marvelous. Thank you. Please mute yourself. And up next is our costume queen, Dorothy Lasky.
Hello, everyone. Just want to start and say, send some big love to Ben McFall and Jim Burley today. Love them both. And also just want to thank our lovely organizers. And just to kind of repeat what Dennis said, there's a special place in heaven or hell or wherever you believe for the organizers. And thank you so much for doing all this work. So the first poem I'm going to read is called Green Moon, and it starts with a little quotation by Lorca, "Green, how I want you green," if you all know that poem. I am sorry I let you down. I was writing this poem in the middle of everything, the way they wanted it. Spring like a gun to the head, green how I want you. I'm so sorry, flower, I let you down. I was a pink warrior, a violet concoction. Someone mixed me up by accident. But don't be sorry for me, nothing like a lake to go admire as you drive past it on the way to something, a real miracle. And if you showed up here tonight like I wanted you to, I wouldn't stop to apologize. I'd embrace you without thinking. How I wanted you then, how I still do. Green like I know you better. If I could do it over again, I wouldn't. Old photo. It says 1921 in the picture and I am smiling, but it's not me anymore, or maybe it never was. He gets so angry when he is drunk and throws the baby across the room. I get so angry when I am ready. I throw myself into oblivion. It says 1999 in the picture. I am wearing a purple dress. There are great planets in circumspect and ahead of me. I never asked for this to be my name. He put a set of pictures up on the wooden wall. He said, find yourself. But that part was easy. Twins. Man in an Easter suit leads into me to kiss me, but I am not in the mood for that. I turn and cough. Desirable. I exhaust myself on ways to find out how to do the work I'm meant to do. In the room to acknowledge you and hello. They douse fumes and put me in a blue bag. I am not in the mood for anything. I leak air. I owe this all to poetry, strange humor. I found you again. The ballet. The dancers in a terribly bright light blue gauze retain the mystery, skating on a lake blue in ice in illusory time where poetry feels inevitable. The terrific clown who lies inside every blue dress, does he see me? Always a star, always a route, horrible auras at the door. But no matter where we start, it all ends in an ocean, hard and fast on the approaching blue dawn. Until then, a deep, low whisper. What is language anyway? An ending that never happens. Love is like a butterfly. With thanks to Dolly Parton for that title. When you're around, it's like the smallest lilacs are in bloom forever. Between us, I feel the tiniest tender flowers, the smallest little lilacs. Between us, like many glowing eggs that we gently volley and roll back and forth between us as a song. Despite the world and all its cruelty, we dare not break them. We use every ounce to give them care. Despite it all, my mad heart, small and insidious, your heart and all its madness, an aquarium with the tiniest fish, always sweet and green forever. Small and insidious, that is what they will say of our love. People write poems about all of their fake love. Real love is a tiny flower. We barely touch between us. Real love is tenderness. Voice. We all said horrible things to each other. You said I'm crazy, so I said you're boring. In the context of things, we certainly were even. The ghost said, all you do is make stuff up. So I said in sighs, but doesn't everyone? When someone dies, eventually you forget their voice. Death is such a lie, it buzzes around you. Poetry, you are the red room of my life, where I go to be any age, where I can be anything at all. And I think I have time for one last poem, and it's called This Beautiful Planet. Please tell me that I was a good child and that I did everything right and that the atmosphere was exactly certain. I want you to love me in ways that you never have so that I become a forgotten world with rainbow sunrises over dark green trees and the cooling of the day becomes normal again. We will sit and watch the body of water that we once called a sort of death. You know, even in my dreams, you say I'll never get it right. This is not a dream. We are burning here with no escape. And no matter how many times they talk about the moon, it does not take a poet to know that the moon is still only an illusion. Only an illusion, the moon calls out to all of us. Come back, it says, but we don't hear it, already on our way to somewhere. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dorothea. Rita Dove wrote a poem once called The Bistro Sticks, which was based on the Demeter and Persephone story. And I thought that some of the adjective noun combinations in your poem could serve as names of drinks for the bistro sticks. Pink warrior, violent concoction, and terrific clown. Those would be great drink names. And I just want to say, I'll take crazy over boring any day. So thank you. You had that combination.
Thank you. Well, any
Say what you're going to say.
Any local Boston bars. I said any local Boston bars want to hit me up for drink names. I'm available, you know, for commission if they're interested.
Okay. All right. You could start with the People's Republic in Cambridge. They might appreciate that. All right. We have one more reader, Lloyd Schwartz, to round things up. So Lloyd, please unmute yourself.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you, organizers, and thank you especially for including me in this amazing group of poets. I am going to read 3 poems, and the first poem, I just want us to keep Ukraine in mind. And this is a translation of a Ukrainian poem by the poet Victor Neborak. It's called Fish. Cold-blooded things living out their days in our bathtub. Their long, slippery bodies end in see-through tails. Their eyes bulge just as someday they'll bulge out from their chopped-off heads. They live on oxygen in the water, separated from my room by one thin wall, by another from the mist, dry leaves, street, buildings, cars I live with. Water and food, crucial, but light from either sun or socket may not be so crucial. Water and food, crucial, but knowing someday they're all going to die may not be crucial, unaware as they are of their family connection to other long, slippery bodies. On it goes. Bodies quivering on the floor, sharp blows flattening their brains, their insides scooped out and dumped with their scales into the garbage. Then they're poached or fried, their heads dropped into the soup. No fish is an island. This involves all of us. Processing plants drip with their cold blood. Some of us object in poems, paintings, documentary films. Still, They make good eating, even while the fish spirits are watching. This is a poem about my mother, and it's a dialogue that I am having with my mother. It's called, He Tells His Mother What He's Working On. I'm writing a poem about you. You are? What's it about? It's the story about your childhood, the horses in the river. The ones that nearly drowned? I saved them. You told it to me just a few weeks ago. I should dig up more of my memories. I wish you would. Like when I lived on the farm and one of the girls fell down the well? Yes. I forget if it was Rose or Pauline. It was a deep well. I remember that story. Have you finished your poem? I'm still working on it. You mean you're correcting it with commas and semicolons? Exactly. When can I see it? As soon as it's finished. Is it an epic? It's not that long. No, I mean all my thoughts, the flashes of what's going through my life, the whole family history, living through the woe, the river and the water. I know. Will it be published? I have to finish it first. It's better to write about real life. That's more important than writing something fanciful. I try to write all my poems about real life. You see, the apple never falls far from the tree. I guess not. You're my apple. There's probably a worm crawling through that apple. Then it's got something sweet to chew on. Well, you're my tree. Yes, I'm your tree. You're an apple. I'm a tree. And I will end with a kind of seasonal poem. It's called Nostalgia, the Lake at Night. The black water, lights dotting the entire perimeter. Their shaky reflections, the dark tree line, the plapping of water around the pier, creaking boats, the creaking pier. Voices in conversation, in discussion, two men, adults, serious inflections, the words themselves just out of reach. A rusty screen door spring, then the door swinging shut. Footsteps on a porch, the scrape of a wooden chair. Footsteps shuffling through sand, animated, youthful voices. How many? Distinct, disappearing. A sudden guffaw, some giggles, a young girl's sarcastic reply, someone's assertion, a high-pitched male cackle. Somewhere else, a child laughing. Bug zappers, tires whirring along a pavement, not stopping, receding. Shadows from passing headlights. A cat's eyes caught in a headlight. No moon. Connect the dot constellations filling the black sky. The ladle of the Big Dipper not quite directly overhead. The radio tower across the lake, signaling. Muffled quacking near the shore, a frog belching, crickets, cicadas, katydids, etc. Their relentless sexual messages. A sudden gust of wind, branches brushing against each other, pine, beech, a fiberglass hull tapping against the dock, a sudden chill, the smell of smoke, wood stove fires, a light going out, a dog barking, then more barking from another part of the lake, a burst of quiet laughter, someone in the distance
Lloyd,
calling.
I'm sorry. How much time, how much more do you have to go?
10 seconds.
All right, go ahead, finish.
Someone in the distance calling someone too loud, steps on a creaking porch, a screen door spring, the door banging shut, another light going out. You must have just undressed for bed. My feet on the splintery pier, turning away from the water.
Thank you, Lloyd. Lloyd,
Thank
what
you.
was the name of the Ukrainian poet and the translator of the poem?
I was the
Oh,
translator,
you're the translator. Okay.
and his name was Victor Neborak,
Okay.
Neborak.
That image of the fish eyes bulging out the way they bulge when their heads are cut off was quite arresting. And I just want to say that some of my favorite images are images in which I'm required to do at least 40% of the imaginative work. And so when you said rusty screen door spring, I just, that conjured so many things for me. So thank you for touching that off. So I want to thank everybody. If we could all give everybody a nice round of applause. Those of you who are watching at home could do it even though we can't see you. So a wonderful, wonderful lineup, a wonderful hour. We went a little bit over, but we started a little late. Anyway, our thanks to Carla Schwartz, Carrie Bennett, Dennis Nurksey, Jessica DeClemming, Judson Evans, Maria Luisa Arroyo, Shira Dentz, Dorothy Alaski, and Lloyd Schwartz. And special, special thanks to our technical host, Bridget Eileen, who is one of the major domos of this whole operation, without whom the dominoes might all fall. So thank you, Bridget Eileen. All right, well, we are ending it. All of you who read might want to stick around. We'll talk a little bit about what you're up to, your publications, etc. We could leave this live, but I think the next thing has already started, right? Yeah. So we should cut this off. You're muted, Bridget.
Coming up in the next hour is David Kirschenbaum, Cynthia Barger, Isabel O'Hare, Jenny Grassel, Mark Pollock, Nada Gordon, Samuel Ace, and Adina Karasek. Thank you everyone for this hour. Hey, we are doing really well on the fundraiser. We're up to 1825, and we're not going to turn into a telethon, but I just thought maybe I would mention that we're really close to 2,000. So if we could get there by the end of the night or over, that would be awesome. Thank you very much. See you all later. And readers, you can stick around if you want.